that's the blueprint to our life. And there's so many stories that are in there that every single person, anything that they battle, you will find yourself in that word.
Yeah.
The Lord has laid it out. So you must find your identity in Christ first and then follow the blueprint that the Lord has laid out. And then you will be able to find what God's will is for your life.
Hey y'all, I'm your host, Brooke Hinchin. Welcome to God's Coffee Call, a place where there's always a fresh brewed conversation happening of personal testimony and life experiences. So grab a cup of coffee, pull a chair to the table, and join our conversation. Welcome back to the next episode of God's Coffee Call. It is 2025, and I am so glad that you are here with us. We have an exciting episode today. I have a personal close friend that the Lord has brought into my life within the last year and a half, and she has a story that I believe will help you start this new year when things don't go the way you've planned it, when it doesn't look like what you want it to look like, when there's things that happen that could overwhelm and take you out, there is hope. And Michelle's story is a story of hope. Michelle's story is a story of restoration, of peace, and the power of the word of the Lord, the power that the word offers to us. And so thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. Are you ready?
I guess.
Well, like I said, I met you guys. Your sister, Monica, was here last year. Her husband, her daughter, they've all kind of making our way through this amazing family because God has done some amazing things in your family in the last probably 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. And it's things that I feel like people need to hear because I think it's things that so many people can relate to, so many aspects and the different turns and the ways that we're going through it that so many people can relate to. And so I'm so honored for you to be here.
Well, thanks for
this
having
morning. So let's start. Are you ready?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about childhood from your aspect. No, I know your sister's is different, but childhood from your aspect.
Childhood, I really don't have very many memories from it just because it was such a chaotic time in our lives where, there was always a push and pull from our parents. I do know my dad was an alcoholic. I knew my mom just took on an abusive relationship. Hers was physical. But at some point or another, after some events that had happened in the home, the state had taken us away. And I remember going to foster care for a little bit, and then our parents would try to get us back, and then we'd go back into foster care. But as far as like core main memories, I really don't have very many of them other than we stayed in foster care for about 6 years maybe. I was just the type of child that wanted the attention from a love standpoint. I never really had it as a child.
Got you.
And so, I think my sister helped a big part of that is helping me get the food that I needed at some point. Right. Again, a lot of those small memories of things.
Yeah.
I just, really don't remember. I really, really remember when we got adopted.
Yeah.
That's really kind of when our memories began.
I remember when her episode came out, there was a statement when she talked about you guys sitting on the steps outside of the hotel. Like you didn't even know why y'all were sitting outside. Like she knew what your mom was doing and the life that she was living as a prostitute at that time. But you, like, even now at your age, you're like, I knew we sat out there, but I didn't know why we sat out there. Like
yes.
You had no.
I didn't know until our podcast, when it aired. And in that moment when I was listening to it, my mouth dropped open. I'm like, oh, what? And then I was like, thank you, Lord, for saving me from that trend that I could have went down.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I had no clue. I do remember sitting out, but I could not remember why.
Got you.
So
yeah.
Learn from her.
Yeah. So I asked her, so I'm going to ask you, going into foster care and then being adopted, what was that like for you?
I wanted family. Mm-hmm. I did. I wanted to know what it meant to have like a family home life. I just didn't know what it would look like, and so I wanted that family vibe. I don't think my sister, I think she harped on more of the past, of the
Mhm.
pain that it kept her from enjoying
Right.
the what it was meant for us, to join together as a family. And I didn't know at one point or another we were separated in foster homes. I'd forgotten all about that because, to be honest with you, whenever we got adopted, so when you're in the system, they give you like this life book
Mhm.
kind of thing, and it literally, our social worker had wrote it out from the beginning what had happened.
Like your story.
Yes.
Okay.
I trashed mine
Oh, okay.
because I didn't really like, not that, well, I can't say it wasn't bitterness, but it was more or less like, you gave me up, but why do I need to hold on to this past?
Yeah.
Like, it's not who I am. But I didn't know that at the time I was
Right.
9.
Right.
I had no clue.
Yeah.
So I was probably a little bit of anger towards them, but I was just like, forget this. I ain't gonna read it. I ripped mine up.
Yeah.
I threw it in the trash. That's why to this day I don't have any pictures, and I don't regret it. I
Yeah.
have no, but I don't have any of that.
Got you. So tell me about the day you get adopted. Do you remember that? Do you remember that
Yeah.
part of that season, the area?
Yeah. So when I got adopted, funny story is, and a lot of people don't know it, but my birth name is different than what. So I changed it
right.
when I got adopted.
Okay.
It was not a name that I'd really used a lot.
Gotcha.
So anyway, so I changed my name, and this name came to me. I don't know why. I don't know. But it was Emily. So I changed my name at adoption. It was just joy, happy that finally someone maybe wanted to give me love and attention that I needed, and to accept me for who I am, even though that my past, and not that it was my fault, but the past that we went through, they were still willing to work with me.
And you were open because your sister said she flat out was like, had a hand up. I don't want to do it. Like, nobody needs to love me.
It didn't take me very long.
And you just like fully embraced it.
Mm-hmm.
Got you.
100%.
And do you think it's maybe because you didn't remember some of the trauma, remember some of the stuff, or
quite possibly
it just, the desire was so much stronger than the trauma, maybe?
Yeah, and I think I tend to like forgive easily in a way now, looking back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily try to look at people's mistakes and be like, you did this to me. And at least, I mean, I know I did with the life book, but that was when I was,
You're not, I mean,
I didn't know Jesus then, but
trauma. Yeah.
I'm just saying in general, like, I tend to have a genuine heart that can really understand, like, I know this person didn't intentionally mean to hurt me.
Gotcha.
So
you see past the flaws, see past the stuff.
At least I try to. Yeah.
Got you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Look at Jesus already working in your life at 9. You didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Love it. You guys went to church, Monica said. Do you remember going to church?
Absolutely.
Remember that?
And that's when 9, 11, really don't remember. That's bad. But that's when it was in foster care. So it may have been 8.5 because I was adopted at 9. Found the Lord when we got into our adoptive home. We went to church, but it was at Hungarian Presbyterian Church. And I really think it's more or less 11 when I got saved, because I don't really remember like the root of Jesus forming at that point. Gotcha. At 8.5.
Yeah.
And so I think it really hit me at 11. And so I think I had some sort of a foundation at 8.5, but it's nothing
right.
But when I got, I'm gonna say just 11, man, I was on fire for the Lord. Like, anytime those doors were open, I was there Sunday and Wednesday, youth trips and YEC and all that. I was there. I was hungry. On fire. Mission trips. I remember a mission trip we did to Toledo Bend, and I thrived on that. Yeah. So anything to do with the youth group, I was there.
Okay. And you got saved. Do you remember that moment or anything? Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, somewhat of a moment, because again, it goes back, that's 32 years ago. Yeah. But I just remember being so eager to do anything at the church.
Gotcha.
And to be a part of what, like, I remember our church hosted that Hill House, and how we were big parts of helping get other people to come through. Gotcha. And help teach salvation and things like, not me, but just being a part of the drama. Hell House and all. So I do remember that. So yes, my foundation in the church at that time was very strong.
Okay. So we're becoming a teenager, and you and your sister are still together. She talks about there came a moment when she moved out. What do you remember that? What were you
Yes, I
feeling
do.
in
I
that
mean,
moment?
I kind of remember everything from adoption
Okay.
on.
Okay.
So I was mad at her. I was like, "What are you doing?" Like, just you have someone who's trying to give you attention, and she may not have been such a rule follower. Sorry, Monica.
She said it last week. She wasn't a rule follower.
And I was. You know what? A past childhood trauma that I probably brought into that was that there was a reason I was getting adopted. Perhaps I was such a bad kid that I didn't want to disappoint someone else.
Got you. Okay.
And so that's kind of like where people please,
Right.
do whatever you can
Yeah.
to not get in trouble.
So where she fully embraced the walls, you were like, "Oh, please forgive." Like, I'll back away and I'll be submissive and just
yes,
got
and
you.
I mean, I'll say sorry for the dumbest stuff.
I used to be like that when Brandon and I first got married. I didn't even realize it, but probably a year or two into our marriage, he's like, "Why do you do that?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You always say you're sorry." I'm like, "No, I don't." He's like, "You tell me you're sorry for the stupidest things, like you didn't dry the dish right or something, or you dropped something. You say you're sorry." And I realized like there was a lot of people pleasing in me because coming through. Growing up without a dad didn't want me, never there, single parent. Like I always had that thing of I just want to be, I'm an extrovert. I love people. But on top of that, I found myself to be a people pleaser. So I found myself like you saying, I'm sorry for the dumbest things. The
When I
smallest
think it's
things.
abandonment issues too.
Mhm.
So you saying sorry is in hopes that that person doesn't leave you because
Hold
of your
it against
mistake.
you. Yeah. And right. Yeah.
That's where that truly came from.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people deal with that maybe have never even thought about it. Hopefully somebody watching this will realize, man, I say I'm sorry a lot for crazy. Like when he told me that, my mind was just blown and I began to pay attention to like I would drop a fork and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And he's like, "You dropped a fork. Okay.
Yeah.
Pick it up.
Yeah.
Let's move along." So
that trend didn't stop. I carried that abandonment
yeah.
throughout the rest of this story.
Oh,
So
okay. Got you. All right. So the rest of the story, your sister has left you. Doesn't make sense. She said y'all didn't talk for a while, right? How was that? Because she's always been in your life. She's always taken care of you. She's always been that protection for you. And now she's just decided to walk away.
I think I was just more, upset and angry with her. The fact that she would just walk away and then go back, because I still probably had more bitterness towards my birth mom.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you go back to someone who didn't want to have you in the beginning? Like, why go back who never had your back?
Yeah.
And so that did cause some friction. And so it was kind of, sometimes it was peaceful in the household.
And that's okay to say because she was so full of trauma and so full of walls built up. It just
and
carried
fiery.
Yeah.
And again, it was just one of those things that like I wish she would have seen some of the things that were, the mistakes in the sense of like, they're just have rules.
Yeah.
They're not that bad.
Right. But in her brain, she couldn't comprehend
You can't
that.
tell someone that.
Right.
In her mind.
Because
Edit that.
you are telling me how I have to be and I need to be in control, which she talked about. She had these control issues that she just wanted to be in control and just.
She's doing a lot better.
She does. She still battles it. She still battles it. And she's very open about that of, hey, I still am working on letting go and releasing. And she's come a long way.
She has.
But I think that's for anybody that has dealt with trauma or putting walls up. It just naturally occurs to put up the boundaries so we don't get hurt again.
Yeah.
Put up the wall so we don't.
Some people have a hard time to keep the walls up. Like you're saying, and whereas mine, I'm just like, I would rather just live freely and not have the walls. But I mean, I've built up my own walls too. Right. So, but it's so much more freeing when you actually let the walls come down.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we're a teenager.
Yeah. Well, Monica was 17 when she got emancipated and I was probably 15 and a half. So again, me just staying in church. That's really what I did.
Mhm.
And so she gets married in 2003. Okay. And she's getting married, and I think the last time I seen my birth mom was, Monica may tell me wrong, but I want to say it was like 6, but I could be off.
Okay.
I could be off. She was at her wedding, and she never told me that she, possibly was coming.
You knew that she had reconnected. You knew that's
I
where
knew
she
at
was
that
staying.
point, yes,
Okay.
but I didn't know that like she was actually gonna be at the wedding.
Gotcha.
And so I remember it was at our church that we were attending, and like the doors open, and we were in the side room, and I look in the crowd and I see her there, and I instantly am just like, "What are you doing here?"
Why are you here?
And I was kind of angry at myself, just
Right.
certain things, and like, why? And so anyway, we get through the wedding, and then I kind of at her reception. And this just all goes back to the root of bitterness back as a child.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not coming into your reception unless she leaves.
Wow.
And so I knew I probably put her in a bad position, but I didn't want the confrontation with her there.
Yeah.
So she leaves. I mean, she respected it, but it caught me by surprise.
Yeah.
And that's where the tension in our relationship between me and my sister was.
Okay.
It's like she was there, I was here. And not that we were intentionally trying to hurt one another, but it was just more or less like, that's why we didn't have a good relationship at that point.
Gotcha.
And it was an evil relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, but we never saw eye to eye at that point.
Okay.
So we get past her and the wedding. So it was in 2003.
Did y'all ever talk about that afterwards or anything? No.
Well, I think I probably showed anger towards my sister.
Gotcha.
When I was like, I just don't understand why you would even do that. But that was her path. I mean, that's just what she clung to.
Right.
And that's okay now looking back.
Yeah.
And so 2003, I graduate high school and then go to college, get a job. Well, actually in high school, 2002. So let's just start there. I just get a job at Winn-Dixie in Hammond. And that's when I met Aaron. Guess we'll go into that. Okay.
Yeah.
So we start dating. I graduate high school. We decide to get married in 2009. I do need to put a disclaimer first.
Okay, good.
So I just want the people to know that like I don't ever try to bash people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever want to So in 2009, we get married, and things were rocky.
Were they rocky before you guys got married?
Yes.
Okay.
And I do feel like the Lord was trying to tell me not to marry him, and
Before,
I didn't.
Because we're a teenager and we're in love, and that's we're 20-something.
And so I felt like he'd given me some red flags, but I didn't know at that point, was it the Lord telling me that? But I really wasn't discerning the spirit either. So I would have never known, to be honest with you. And to be real honest, I had no self-confidence. So it was one of those things that, again, that someone is showing me love, so this is what I must go after.
Right. No, I was there. I dated a guy in high school. Great guy. Awesome guy. We were not meant to be together. Lots of people in my life weren't fond of him, but because my self-esteem was so low, somebody loved me and somebody took me the way I was, and somebody said, "Hey, I'll love you." And even though it was teenage love, to me it felt so real and it felt so deep. So some of the red flags that I think the Lord probably was showing me, I didn't want to see either, because it was love and it was acceptance, and I was that people pleaser like you in the same regard. So I get that.
So we're married, and just I can't really remember going, because it's 21 years. We stayed together 21 years total. Things were not what they should be, and I know it goes back to the roots that he had.
Mhm.
He was never truly loved, perhaps. And so the only way he knew how to love was how he was loved.
Right.
And so I know he was doing his best.
Right.
At least now I can look back and say it.
Yeah.
At the time, I could not say that.
Right.
Because I'm just like, you're a grown man. Like, come on now.
Mhm.
And so anyway, things were rocky. Just, I had anger issues. He was never physical, but he had anger issues and just things that would fuel his fire, like gave you silent treatments, no matter how mad.
Which to a people pleaser is
The
horrible.
worst thing.
Yeah. So he's lashing out and you're just soaking it in, not rocking the boat because I'm the people pleaser and I want you to stay and I want you to love me. So
yeah. And so if I said anything, I was
Right.
afraid they were going to leave. Because again, that abandonment
Right.
root came from my childhood.
Yeah.
So I'm still carrying that abandonment through my marriage.
Mhm.
So throughout the entire 21 years, I'm just like, keep peace no matter what. Keep peace. You made a covenant to God and you're going to see this through. You've disappointed you've disappointed from your birth parents. You know, I'm sure I've not necessarily gave disappointments to my adopted parents because I never really gave them a hard time. So I know
Right.
they're proud or whatever. But I'm just in general, like, don't ever disappoint your husband. But mainly and truthfully, I never wanted to disappoint God.
Even through all of that.
Even through all of
Right.
that. And so
You're still going to church? Is he going to church with you?
no,
Oh,
we
okay.
didn't go to church at all.
Oh, okay.
So like
Gotcha.
literally,
Like you still
this
love
was-
Jesus, but it was like behind the scenes kind of thing. Okay.
Never in my bone.
Okay.
Just, you know, I kind of played that pew person,
Okay.
just like the next person.
Yeah.
Just go check that box.
Mhm.
And so, but no, there was no relationship. There was no fruit. You couldn't see anything. There was, you know, nothing. And not that I went out and did anything crazy because I was the kid that just never wanted to stay in trouble. Again,
Right.
going back to that, I don't ever want someone to leave me. So if I go off and do it and get in trouble, is this person going to want to not have anything to do with me anymore? And so I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's have a baby. Oh, not in 09, but in 2012. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm like, let's have a baby. A baby will change all this.
Oh, yeah.
A baby will fix it all.
It fixes it all.
Wrong.
Never.
No. It like applies the pressure even higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, but I just felt like, okay, you have your own kid. There's nothing like you can't show love to this person.
Right, right. No, even
Mm-mm.
still yet.
Mm-mm. So at this time we were living in a meet. And so that was in 2012. Bella was born. And I was the one who did everything again, because it goes back to his childhood where his mom did everything for him.
Right. Yeah.
And so I did everything from putting the kids to sleep, whatever. I did it all with no help. So 2012, she's born, you know, and then we moved to Albany in 2014. And then 2017, I'm like, oh, let's add another one to the mix. Thinking two would be better.
Yeah.
And your firstborn, you know, that's your obviously you close bonds with that. But the second one, I think the Lord was sending for him to see what joy really was supposed to be in this life.
Gotcha. Okay. Talk about that. What?
In hopes that it would maybe wake him up.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just...
And you're talking about because the personalities of your girls are so different, and they are.
They are.
And they're beautiful, and I love them, but they are completely different.
Yeah, Bella's a little spitfire. She's
She
kind of like
is.
Aunt Monica.
She is not a little spitfire. She is a spitfire and a half, just like my Kimber, for sure.
And so sometimes I joke with Monica, said, why am I reaping what you said? We literally joke about that a lot. But so in all honesty, you know, Bella was there for me for those years to know. And really and truly what Bella doesn't know is until she was born, I had no backbone. So she was the one who gave me a backbone.
That's sweet. That's awesome.
Because at that point, the whole, you know, from 2002 to 2009, I let him walk right all over me.
Right.
And then when I had a child, that's when I grew a backbone.
Mm.
But it wasn't like a mean backbone, but it was just more or less like, when you hurt my feelings, I'm going to tell you.
Right.
And so, and then Juju was in 2017. She was supposed to give him a different side of life, to like, this is what joy should be like.
And she is. She's one of the happiest little girls, like just always smiling.
Yeah. And so 2017, you know, I do need to go back one. Sorry about that. In 2016, January of 16, we walked through a path where he found out his mom overdosed in their home.
Okay.
And he was extremely close to his mom.
Okay.
And because she's the one who did everything for him.
Right.
And so he stayed silent about it. And most people do. And I think that's one of the things that when you keep silent about it, keep your silence about it, you never really heal from any of it.
Right.
You choose to keep it under the rug and pretend that it didn't happen.
Gotcha.
But then you start lashing out on people who are there to help you. And you end up bleeding on people that shouldn't be bled on.
Mm.
And so that's what our household became. Him bleeding on his closest people that he, you know, when we were there just trying to help. So then 2017, Juju's born. Again, walking on eggshells from 2017 up until his passing. But so in 2022, we got to speak about the revival.
Of course. Let me give my disclaimer like I've done. So we have this revival come to town, small church in the backwoods of South Louisiana, supposed to be just a scheduled little 7-day revival kind of thing. And the Lord showed up, and hundreds to thousands of people's lives were changed in this revival that went from a church sanctuary to a large blue circus style tent for almost a year or something like that, but radically changed life and totally affect your family.
100%.
Like your family is one of the major families that this revival just in the presence of the Lord just flipped upside down. So for those that didn't know, that don't live local and knew about the revival, that's what we're talking about. So.
Yeah. So before revival began, like I had, asked Aaron, I was like, look, do you need to get help with anything? And, you want to go talk to somebody? It was just, he was angry at God.
And it was just building up more and more and more.
Yes. And so eventually, I want to say it was in 2021. Sorry, I keep going backwards on my years, but he finally said that he was angry at God. And so we finally got him on some depression medicines.
Okay.
And so he was a different person. And for the good.
For the good, okay.
And so the medicine was working. We felt everything was going great. And a disclaimer there too, it's like, depression medicines are not bad. They're there for a reason. But if you're going to be willing to take them, you have to be willing to talk about why you have to take them.
Yeah.
And because if you just take them and just go on about, your life, all you're doing is putting a Band-Aid over the wounds of why you need the medication.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the wound's still festering and doing what it's doing.
Because eventually that medicine's not going to work.
Right.
That medicine, you're going to have to up your dosage. You're going to have to get so high of a dose, but then you have to worry about the side effects of the medication because the side effects itself could cause
more things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so he was a different person, and I, in a sense, felt a little bit more at peace. But even when he had his bad days, it was bad. Like when I'm talking silence, it was silence for 3 or 4 days.
Wow. Just living in the house, just not talking.
But then
to the girls too, or just to you? To everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I was hoping that Juju would be able to bring the light, not God's light, because just her good spirited.
Yeah.
To bring him to be cheerful, and but it was just inner things that he had been battling. So revival hits. about a month before revival even came, my sister reached out. I was like, hey, let's go try this church. I'm like, really? It's just going to be like any other church that we go to around here. Everybody knows everybody.
Everybody's in everybody's business.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
right.
so I'm just like, no, it's too big. Not too big, but too many people know
Right.
everybody. So
Gotcha.
I was like, okay, we'll go. So then a month later, revival shows up. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. This is weird. This is... So it's Brother DR, I call it DR. And so we went the third night of the first week. And when I tell you, that man knows how to preach the gospel, you know, and literally convicted me of everything. I knew that I knew the Lord, but that night, that's when it set fire.
Gotcha.
Like, to where, like, no, this is not what I want you to be doing. I want you to be doing this, you know, and I want you to be following me. And so that was like October 16th or 17th, I think. I don't really remember dates, but October 25th, Aaron decides to come. He goes on the 24th. And you can tell he was battling of going up there. Like, Satan really had a hold on him, and he refused to go up there that night. And I remember the next day, it was October 25th, and I was just like praying to the Lord that morning. Like, I know where his soul would be at if he were to die today. And so the Lord just kind of told me on my lunch break to go and talk to him at his work. And so I did. And I was just like, look, the Lord does not want you to be in all this bitterness and anger that you have. Like, he wants you to live in peace, and he wants you to have joy, and he wants you to have a family who loves you and who wants to just be around you. And I said, the Lord can do all that for you. And so then that night he went up there after hearing preaching again, and he got saved.
Awesome.
So that was October 25th. So
did you see a change in him in that?
Yes, I did. You know, like his demeanor changed, but again, the medicine was kind of masking some of it.
Okay.
You know, and so I do think it was a genuine salvation. I do know, because I did see the fruit of, I don't want to listen to country music anymore, and I know country music's not bad, but I'm just saying,
but for
the
him
fruit
in his
of
state,
it
it wasn't right.
And so it's like he listened to nothing but praise and worship, and like he would be on Sunday mornings, he would have the TV on praise and worship and just listening to that kind of music, just being by himself. And so, you know, we're going to revival every night. It gets extended again week after week until finally the week after Thanksgiving, they're like, okay, we're going to bring this big old tent to a field here in Hammond. Yeah. And so that began. We get through Christmas holidays. January the 6th, I believe, he actually officially gets baptized. Okay. And so the baptism is where things kind of went the opposite direction. Okay. Now, I'm not saying baptism is bad, because that's something that we're supposed to do as out of the obedience of what the Lord's called it, you know, to as a believer. But that's when Satan comes after you the hardest. Right. Because just like in the Bible, when John the Baptist baptized Jesus, he went into the wilderness, and that's when Satan tempted. Right. And so it was like that. Okay. But worse. Okay. And so just, we were back at that, walking on eggshells, you know, and at this point it became, like we were going to every night service. Every time I think out of the whole entire year, and this isn't for bragging rights by any means, but it was just that meant that I needed it so much more. I think I missed one service under that tent. Mm-hmm. And I think it possibly, some of it was a little bit too much for him as far as like going all in that deep. Got you. Whereas I had a foundation at an early
He's
childhood.
like, I'm hungry and I'm just sucking it all in.
Yes.
Got
and
you.
So, but you can't go too deep with the Lord. Like if you're all in, you're all in. Yeah. Like it's not, okay, well I can go here on this night. Yeah. And if it's there and you're preaching the gospel, like you want to be under. So he heard hundreds of messages on how to treat people, how to love on people, things like that. But Satan was coming after him.
Right. He's still battling that stuff. Gotcha.
Yeah. So January 25th, DR had preached on what's hiding in your tent. And so that message really hit me hard, because the Lord revealed that, number one, I had a gossiping tongue. And not just a gossiping tongue like towards other non-believers, but it was actually towards believers who, in the sense of I was trying to help them
Gotcha.
But then I would go talk about possibly a few things,
Right.
or not mention names. It was nothing like that, but
Right.
it was just more or less, you're not supposed to say any of that. And
Mhm.
so it was like, you have to take care of that, but then you have to call your birth mom. Wait, what?
Come again?
Yeah. You want me to call her and to release unforgiveness? Yes, because the Lord goes back to your first root of rejection.
Come on.
And that was where mine landed.
He likes those roots. He likes to dig in there and get in those roots.
So he goes to the first one.
The first one.
Because that's the only thing that can loosen up any other root that you have that has you bound. So February the 7th or 8th of 23. We're in 2023 now, in case no one's... I forgot. And so they would have a prayer meetings at the tent. And at this point, I'm still not... I mean, I'm on fire for the Lord, but I've never really said, oh, I'm going to go help this person. I'm going to help. I'm a don't be seen kind of person. Like, no, ma'am, I don't want to be in the spotlight. I'm surprised you got me to do this.
Jesus works wonders.
Anyway, and so this lady, I'm minding my own business, and this lady comes up and taps me on the shoulder. She's like, hey, can you help me? And I'm just like, excuse me? She's like, yeah. And so I bring her to the altar, and she was just like, I'm feeling guilt because my kids blame me. My husband committed suicide and shot himself, and now I'm having grief and shame. And I'm like, wait, what? And so I'm like, what's funny? Our paths were crossing. My husband has guilt and shame for what his mom did.
Right.
I said, that's crazy. And so anyway, I prayed with her, but more to that in a minute. So February 14th, I actually reached out to my birth mom, and I called her, and I was like, hey. And my mom, I don't think she was ever hesitant to, like, because Monica had to give me her number. Mm-hmm. And so Monica had called her at that point and was like, hey, Michelle's going to call you. And she was like, what, to chew me out or something? And, and so I called her, and I was just like, hey, look, I just want to let you know that I forgive you for what you did. I mean, I know it wasn't an easy decision for you to do, but I said at the end of it, I'm very thankful for what you did, because had you not done that, then I wouldn't be where I'm at right now. And so I applaud you for that. And so I told her, I said, before I got off the phone with her, I said, hey, look, do you know the Lord? And she said she did. And I said, look, we may never meet again on earth, but as long as you're a believer in Christ, just stay prayed up, be in the Word, and we'll see each other in heaven. Yeah. And so little, beyond to me that she dies just a couple weeks ago. She died actually a week after Monica's episode in 2024. 2024, yeah. Yeah, so she died. And so whenever I found out, my sister told me, I was just like, what? So the Lord it's not a coincidence. Yeah. The Lord, and that was my biggest thing, is I never wanted her to go to her grave with grief and shame. Right. And so the Lord gave me the opportunity to clear the air with her that way, because he had already knew what was going to happen. Right. And so otherwise, had I not listened to what the Lord told me, then I would be putting myself through guilt and shame now. Right.
So one thing, but a couple earlier in December, my niece Jade was here. Thanksgiving, she was here, and we talked about her mom and dad, their relationship and things. And one thing I always told her was, you don't have to respect your parents. You don't have to like them, but we're going to honor them. Right. And honoring the fact, like you said, you gave me birth. Honoring the fact that it was hard for you to give me up, but you did what was best in hindsight for me. So honoring those acts of allowing me to live on the earth, allowing me to grow up and have the opportunity to get married and have kids, honoring that fact. And I think some people will walk through life where they've just been disrespected and just kind of dust their parents off and forget that we're all human, right? And then some people just need to get their acts together and do things right. But at the same time, we need to honor the fact that they gave you life, honor the fact that they they let you live here in this earth, right? Kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so I think it's cool that you had full circle to be able to come back and say that to her.
Yes.
And Monica and I were talking when we filmed her episode. Your birth mom died like a week or two after that,
Right.
and then when it aired, which was for Christmas, they had just had the service for her, so it
Right.
was kind of
Yes.
and
It's
we
so crazy.
and we talked about how like Monica was like sharing her story, and I said, at least you got to tell part of her story and the redemption of the
Right.
Lord at the end of that story. And so
Yeah.
I love that there was redemption also in your story with her in that regards.
Yeah.
To heal some stuff.
So, and then also too, like I never felt like the Lord was telling me to open that door back up to
Right.
have an earthly relationship.
Which
His
is
main
totally okay.
point was you need to go back to the first root.
Mm-hmm.
And this was the first one because me doing that one thing unveiled everything else that has happened
Got you.
because I addressed the first root.
Yeah.
And, and so did that. And again, that was just my main goal in that conversation, to let her know. And she told me, she's like, well, when God gave me another chance, because she helped raise another child or so. I don't know the whole story of it. I said, look, our God is the God of second chances. And so he allowed you to help raise another, child perhaps. And I said, I don't hold you in hostage for that. I mean, it is what it is, And so go from there. Revival still going on. I remember, and these are the kind of things that I don't like really talking about, people, because I don't want you to think that I'm shaming anybody, because I'm not. But just spiritual warfare was extremely rampant in the house. Like it was to the point of like I would pray before getting into my garage because I was not sure which version of Aaron I was going to get that day.
Because he's even though he's baptized, he's still having this back and forth stuff.
Yes,
okay.
Satan was just after him, literally after him. And we know Satan's out to kill, steal, and destroy.
Right.
Always. And so he, it was the night of the 12-hour service. There was an overnight, 12-hour. And he was just having a bad day that day. And he had put me in a really bad predicament of, he's like, it's either God or me. And I've never been, and me still being a people pleaser, still being the type of person that was just like, I don't want to make you mad with my decision, And so it's just, and looking back, and it was just like everything that there was the punishment behind every decision that I had. And then, as a woman, like you hold your husband or you hold anybody, like, I'm still mad at you for what you did.
Right.
But the bad thing about what I went through was the fact that I'd had to go ask him for an apology. There was never apologies.
Right.
I would have to get it out of you so that way I could move on.
Right.
But deep down, I know it wasn't sincere because I'm asking you for it.
Right. Gotcha.
And so, and I would say,
was never that voluntary conviction.
And I would
thing.
say sorry for things that I shouldn't have even said sorry for, just to keep peace.
Just to get peace.
Just to be that doormat, to just be like, okay, if that's how you want to treat me, again, I'm not going to dishonor God in leaving you. And so that conversation, we said God or me, and I'm just like, I was silent. And he was like, I already know the answer. So at this point, he's like, I'm not coming home tonight. So he stayed at his dad's house and he watched the service that night. And I remember it was Brother David, his dad, DR's dad, had preached, and DR preached that night. But it was talking about how when you get to know the Lord, you're either going to be ankle deep in, toe feet, put your toes in, you're just going to be ankle, you're going to go to your knees, or you can go to your chest, or you're going to go all in.
All in, yeah.
And so he listened to it because he was texting Monica during the service.
Okay.
And so next morning, the Lord knows that I have such weak flesh. And so I kind of had peace at that point to be like, okay, look, you really need to work on yourself, But my weak flesh gave in once again. I was so afraid to stand up to him. So incredibly afraid. And so, small portion of deliverance, there were some things that I was able to get rid of between then and, his passing, but just me being open to like realizing that I did have some things that I did let people hold me in hostage with, you know,
Right.
and I gave it all to the Lord and he took it from me, you know, and at that point, this was May, rolls around May the 6th. And this was kind of after revival kind of dispersed a little bit. There was a few people that were not, you know, on board with it any longer.
Right.
And all respect to them, you know,
Right.
you do what you got to
Right.
do.
Right.
But this was about 2 weeks before his passing, and that it was May 6th that night. That's when he kind of locked me out of the house. And
So is he still staying with his dad? Or
no,
he's
I'm
back,
sorry. I
he's
do
back
need to
home?
go back. So he's back home because
Okay.
that back in March.
Okay.
That's when my flesh was weak. I'm like,
Gosh,
okay,
yeah,
we'll
come
work
back.
through
We'll work
it.
it
Yeah,
through.
yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
And so then May 6th, he locks me out of the house. And at this point, I have like 8 people banging on the door with me to try to get him
Wow.
to come to the door, and nobody. He's not there. And my first instinct was like, oh my gosh, did he overdose?
Did
at
something
this
happen?
point.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to add that part too. Like earlier in that day, he had walked to Mitchell's house, which is about 2 miles from our
they
home.
live a little away from you.
And so he walked in the rain, and he depressive state. Like there was
Gotcha.
no talking to him.
Yeah.
And I had tried, like I went after him. I was like, hey, look, the Lord doesn't want you to hold on to this. He's like, there you go again, talking about God. And so I'm just in such a push and pull situation. And that's the day that he told me that I was about to lose my family. He told me that.
Wow.
And so,
and it's so hard because you just deep down somewhere, you got to love him, right? I mean, you fell in love with this man. We've had kids with this man. I just want to save you. I just want to help you. Like, you see the potential that could be in him.
Yes.
You see the man that he could be, the dad, the husband that he could be. And it's so hard when you see that in someone, but you can't shake it off of them. You can't shake them out of it. And so you're in that in between of, I want to help you, but you got to let me help you. I want to save you, but you got to let me help you save you. And not that you could do it, but you had the answers in the word. You had the Lord there. But with that depression and that cloak and that heaviness, it's so hard to hear through that.
Absolutely.
On top of the medication that's with it as well.
Yes. And so, and that was the thing too, like even in the household in that day, like it was hard for me to even try to open the Bible in the home because the spiritual warfare was so bad. There would be anger. Well, there you're reading your Bible again. And I'm like, just trying to keep peace. And, to try to internalize everything that I'm battling, because that was the only thing that was bringing me peace at that point. And so he goes to my brother-in-law's house, and Mitchell talks to him for a little bit. And Aaron's the type of personality that the only person that could really get through to him was Monica.
Okay.
That was it. So, like, even because Mitchell and I are more like the peacemakers, and Monica is more like, I can reason both sides of it. And so I called on Monica that night that he had locked me out, and I was like, look, he's not answering the door. So she goes over there, and next thing we know, we have 8 people. And now all these, my neighbors know.
Everything's fully exposed.
Yes. And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Your business literally is in the street now. Literally.
And so I'm just like, oh my gosh, I don't like this. And so anyway, he eventually comes to the door, and I do think he was probably, I don't know if intentionally, he had taken too much of his sleeping medicine that night.
Gotcha.
But he refused to go get help at the hospital.
Okay.
And so that night, after everyone had left, it was like 1 a.m. Social media, a lot of times we just think that that's just pure negative stuff. But I tell you what, the Lord was speaking to me even then, because he was starting to do a work in me. And that point was just some of the things that I was seeing. It was like, you're never ready to do what you have to do. You just have to do it. And just this peace that it was bringing me in the midst of it all. It was like every 3 seconds that what was coming up on my feed was things that I needed to see. And so that Sunday morning, I had called his dad over, and I was just like, hey, look, I just want to let you know, I need you to come over and heal. Because I knew I needed to have this conversation, but I didn't want it to be him and I, because I knew I could not stand up to him.
Yeah.
And I wanted him to have someone on his side, and maybe the middleman, which was Monica. Sorry, sister, I always put you as a middleman.
Always. That's okay.
Her.
She got it.
But I just wanted it to be fair for
Yeah.
him, you know, and she was there just to be the middleman. And the biggest argument on his part was, are you going to change? He was asking me that. Are you going to change? And my sister, in a kind response, was like, what do you want her to change from?
Yeah.
And then I would ask him, it was like, well, we need to address the issue that you walk down 190 in the rain to someone's house, and then you lock your wife out of, and your oldest child out of the house. Why?
Right.
And then the only kind of response was, you know, you should have had your keys at that point. And I'm just, okay.
Gotcha.
So
there was no reasoning.
No,
Gotcha.
none.
Deflecting every which way.
Every which way. And so eventually I just told him, I was like, look, you got to take some time to yourself. You need to, you know, and he put up a fight about it.
Right.
But he eventually left, and he was supposed to go stay at his dad's house, but he refused because it brought back past trauma.
Because his mom.
And so he went and stayed at a hotel room that night. And of course, we all went after him. I personally didn't, but my other family members, they had. Did you go to reason? He was not willing to talk to anybody. He's not willing to talk to his dad. Nowhere.
Well, and two, you know, we often will deflect what's going on, and we often will resist because of that exposure. Means I got to be accountable for this. That exposure means I got to talk about things that are really hard. That exposure means I got to express things that I don't really know maybe how to express or what to say or how to say it rightly and wrongly. And so he's got this thing inside of him, being angry at God, being angry at his mom, being angry at himself, being angry at you, like all of that balled up into one. And then the enemy just pouring it on, because the enemy, whether we love Jesus or not, is out to steal, kill, and destroy us at any regards of our life. So can only imagine that.
Yeah, and I know I would never want to imagine what he was feeling like at that point, but I do know that no one really gave up on him.
Right.
You know, like he had so many people reach out
constantly
to
pursuing him. Yeah.
And so he was never left alone. You know, never left alone unless it was by his own doing. Because it was, we tried everything we could. Yeah. So, when he left that day to go to the hotel, I scrolled Facebook, and the very first thing I come to is how to spot a narcissist. And so it broke down like their characteristics, and unfortunately he had every single one of them, and I was just blinded to it because again, low self-esteem, abandonment, couldn't call it out because I was too afraid had I did, I was really going to be left. Yeah. And so, so at that point I'm like, oh my gosh. So this week, that day is when literally there was such a supernatural power and strength in me that I can't even explain with words what the Lord was doing at this point. I was not afraid of him. I did not have any worry. I was encouraging him to like, look, I need you to seek help. I need you to get counseling. I need you to do self-help before we can do marriage help. Right. You know, because your roots have to be addressed before marriage roots can, because you were a kid before you became a husband. Yeah. So, and you brought your childhood trauma into a marriage that now the whole marriage is coming down in the sense of if we don't handle what happened in the beginning, you know, so anyway,
which is so smart, so wise. Like, kudos to you, because man, that's really big, and that's like the Holy Spirit. I was thinking as you're talking about that He'll give you strength where we don't have strength, right? He'll make the path straight before you for you to walk down, and he'll guide you down that path, because up until this point you were like, I'll just go wherever to please and to not rock the boat. And that's the Holy Spirit directing you specifically of how to handle that.
And that's my main argument I don't want to say argument, but that's my main piece through it all. It's because it's like, if you knew me before this downfall of him, like I would kiss his feet, in the sense of like, I just want you to be happy. I will literally do anything to see you happy on this earth.
Gotcha.
Like, no matter, again, if it meant your words hurting me having to come ask for you an apology, things like that. And so in the sense of that week, we did go talk to a minister, and, things were a little bit exposed at that point, but it was more from a victim standpoint and not, he had abandonment issues, which I get it. He did. He didn't have the greatest childhood himself, at least what I knew of.
Right.
But it was just more or less, okay, but be the man in the situation and handle it as best as you know how. And so, unfortunately, that was Friday. So 48 hours later, unfortunately, it was just too much for him to handle. And he actually ended his life self-inflicted. And so, but y'all, the Lord literally had me.
I can attest to that because I saw you the next day or so at the tent, because we were just starting to build our friendship kind of thing, and there was this weird piece about you, like you were sorrowful and you were sad, but you weren't consumed. You weren't flailing about, I guess, on the floor, like weeping, like you were so sad and so mournful, but you had that peace that truly passed understanding.
Right.
Like, how is she functioning right now? How is she doing what she's doing? And it wasn't that you were even appeared to be numb. Like when we go through grief, sometimes we go through that numbing season. It didn't even appear that you were numb to the situation. It just appeared that the Lord is holding me. He's my standard. He's my everything right now in this moment.
Yes. And that's exactly what happened. And one thing that I want to say too, it's like so many times, like we often, we shame the person, whoever is being verbally abused, or we shame the person in their marriage. They're like, why do you put up with that? Why do you allow someone to treat you that way?
Yeah.
And so we shame them for not leaving for that. But then on the flip side, when you do finally stand up and take up for yourself, and in an event like this happens, then it's like, why did you leave him like that?
Right.
So it's like, there's no,
like, what table you want me to sit at?
Right.
Like,
so it's like, so I'm either going to abandon God and the covenant that I made with him, or put forth every possible effort until the Lord himself gave me the strength to do it, because I did not do that.
Yeah.
Like, I literally, you can't take a people pleaser who would put up with that much for 21 years and then all of a sudden one day and be like, oh no, I'm just not going to take it anymore.
Right.
No, that's not me.
Yeah.
That is not me. And that's what I'm meaning by it's such a supernatural power and strength that he gave me that week. That was the only reason I could ever stand up. Like, that was literally Philippians 4:13.
Yeah.
And so, so, in the midst of that, it's a sad situation that where we put some people, like, shame on you for doing this, shame on you for doing that. But you really can't say those words unless you walk those people in their shoes, And so it's like, until you truly know who I was in the home and outside of the home, then you would know that what I'm saying is, I never really gave up on him.
Yeah.
I literally did everything possible, so, and in that moment, I'm going back to the tent where that lady who told me that, she was feeling grief, and shame for her husband. There are people that blame me for this.
Yeah.
They're, they've not told me to my face, but I know that there is some guilt and shame that they have, that they feel like maybe I let him down. And, but that was just the Lord preparing me.
Yeah.
The Lord just teaching me that there are going to be some people who do not understand this situation, but it's okay. You're not here to please man. You're here to please me, and if I've allowed you to go through this situation with peace and strength, then that's all you need. And when I literally say that I felt I now understand what God's grace really was in all of 2023 from May on. I literally felt his grace in the sense of, like, I had so much strength to get through that, like, I didn't care what people said. If
Right.
you wanted to throw your opinion or you want to talk behind my back and say what you think happened or call me cold-hearted because you didn't see me grieving,
Right.
I already knew that the Lord, he had already strengthened me. So it really
Right.
didn't matter. And I think the Lord did that intentionally so I'll never forget what I felt.
Yeah.
Because, once again, Satan takes you to your past to make you remember. But in this sense, this was a good that the Lord will never allow me to forget that, to know that I have true 100% confidence to know that I never really did leave him.
Right. As you were talking, like, this is, I often like to think about where the things that we go through in life, where can we find that in the Bible? And this is going to sound weird, but I promise it's going to go. But if you think about Mary, when the angel came to Mary, she's not married. She's betrothed to this guy. She's young, but they're not married. And this angel comes and says, hey, you're going to go through this thing. You're going to be pregnant. And in the society at the time, wasn't the way we did it. The society at the time, it didn't make sense. It wasn't the kosher way to do it. It wasn't the honorable way to do it. You're all of a sudden pregnant with this baby and you're not even married yet. And there were lots of opinions, I'm sure. I mean, so many opinions that she left her city and went to stay with her cousin. And I think sometimes the opinion of others will cause us sometimes to talk away the things that God's doing in our life, or take responsibility for the things that the Lord's doing, or try to make them look better. But Mary didn't do that. She's like, okay, I'm not going to stay here with the accusations because I know what the Lord has said to me, and I know what the Lord has spoken to me and what he's put on me and put inside of me. And it kind of reminds me of you in the situation of, I don't care what you have to say. I know that the Lord has held me.
Right.
I don't care how you think and the responsibilities you think I need to take. I know what the Lord has told me, and I know what I did on the background. I know what Aaron did on the background and how we tried to make it work, how we didn't try to make it work, and that there's a peace inside of you.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, people ask me all the time, like, why are you so bold? Why are you so just like whatever for Jesus? And I've had this revelation in my life of, one day I am going to stand before the Lord. That is not just a story we tell. One day we are going to stand before the Lord, and he's going to air out all of the laundry, not just in the street, but like everybody in the world's at judgment, like we got millions at judgment seat. I would much rather take care of it here with Jesus and be honorable to Jesus now than to be disobedient and be swayed by your opinion and what you have to say of me and be held accountable there in front of millions, when I can be held accountable now for my actions and honor the Lord now with my actions and serve the Lord now with my decisions. And so I want to speak that to you. Like, and I've watched you do that. The opinion of others, the way they think that sometimes maybe you could have handled it differently or you should have responded differently. Michelle's got to stand before the Lord, and Michelle's okay.
Yeah.
With what she's done and standing before the Lord with it.
Absolutely. At least I try to, but it's only by God. It's not me. So,
totally.
And I will say this too. So it was he died, and again, the peace, the strength, it lingered with me throughout. I mean, I still have it to this day, but I'm just saying in general, like I felt it so much stronger in 2023 that after he even died, it was like a week or so after he died, I was like, Lord, you got to let me know everything that I went through was worth it. Like, let me know, please. And a lot of people do not know about this. You do already know about it, but a lot of people do not know that the Lord blessed me with a dream that it was around Memorial Day. And it's a dream that I've never questioned. I was like, okay, awesome, sweet. Yeah. So in this dream, I gotten a text from Aaron, and it said, I know distance, but I need tacos. And I was just like, excuse me? Well, it's funny he said it because before he ended his life, there was a week where I had stayed at my brother's house. And obviously we couldn't afford for him to stay in a hotel. So I'm like, you stay at the house and then I will go stay here, but separate in the sense of, work on yourself and let's see where we go. It was never, I'm chopping the hammer,
Right.
whatever, chopping the hammer, chopping the cord. But it was just more or less help me
Right.
help you, get Aaron's bucket fixed before we move on to the dual bucket. And so, but he would, that personality, that narcissistic personality on the flip side, when he thought that in a sense he was losing control, it was just like he would just attack through text. And I was like, respect the distance,
Mm-hmm.
get some help.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was funny when I got this text message that I know distance, but I need tacos. And so I kind of open my eyes and I'm like, oh my gosh, please don't be in my bed. Just kind of one of those things like, what do you do? I closed my eyes and then I heard, you should see this place.
Wow.
So at that point, that was just the Lord giving me peace to know that everything was fine.
Right.
That he had him and that he was healed. He was, he's not hurting anymore. He's not hurting anymore.
Right.
And he's not bleeding on the people that he was bleeding on any longer.
And so how are we, how did your girls walk through this? And we don't have to talk much about it because so much has happened since then, but how did your girls walk through it and process it, and let's go into where you guys are going now. Like what's happening now?
So it's not a coincidence, but the Lord had them the whole time too, because for Bella's sake, she experienced more of what I went through in this sense as well. Like she saw more of it, but so she felt in a sense of a little bit of a relief too, in a sense, because this is her dad. So she knows everything and what happened, things like that. But obviously the youngest one, it's just not a conversation you hold at this point. So the Lord had them. The Lord brought peace to them, and I can't fabricate their feelings. Their feelings show it to people every day.
Yeah.
That they have peace, they have joy, they have the same thing that I had. And that just lets you know that the Lord has all three of us in his right hand.
I thought it was interesting, because Bella was like 9, 10 when he passed away.
No, she was 11.
11.
Yeah. We're going in May of 24. May of 25 will be 2 years.
And how old is she now?
She's 12.
She's 12.
So wait, she was 10.
She was right. 9 or 10. Yeah, I thought so. But I thought it was interesting because how old were you when you guys were adopted?
9.
9. It's interesting, around the same time of both of your lives, family changes. Family dynamic changes. And I didn't even think about it just now till you did it. But like being able to look back to your 9-year-old self and the things that you walked through and who you became. Interesting that Bella almost in some sense has that opportunity at 9 to shape her life. And
that's crazy. I never even
me neither. It just kind of happens. It's the Holy Spirit.
Awesome.
That at 9, 10 years old, both of you have had this thing that shifted life and the dynamic of family and what that looks like and stuff. And so how are you today? I know, golly, this is the part that I've been excited about. And this is really the reason that we're here, because you did have that peace. You do have that peace. And it's almost like the Holy Spirit has accelerated your relationship with the Lord. It's insane just to watch the growth that has happened to you in the last 1.5 2 years. So tell us a little bit, what's life looking like now? Who are you today?
So, one thing I know, so we're going to go back to when I picked my adoption name and I chose Emily, which I didn't know this, but this was at the beginning of revival. And you and I had a conversation and you were like not defining your kid's name, but looking at them through Greek and Hebrew and all of that. And so I'm like, oh, well, let me look mine up. And so when I looked at Emily and it said, one who overcomes.
Come on now.
And so I'm just like, what? That's so awesome. And so then, after all of this has come, I'm like, okay, cool. I got it. We're good. And it hit me in the Bible where Mary and Joseph obviously didn't get to choose the name.
Right.
And neither did
Zachariah
and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And so, because he picked their name out. And so, even back when I was 9 years old, the Lord had already put Emily because he knew
you were going to be overcome.
he named me.
That's amazing. And that's the conversation we had is we prayed over our kids' names. We prayed. There were some names that we liked, but we prayed, Lord, what do you have for our kids to be on this earth and establish and the plans that you have for them? Like, because when I call my son, if the Lord's called him to be a conqueror, I don't want to call him a name that means the shy one, right? Because I want you to be the conqueror. And so we prayed and we were having that conversation. And I remember that day, like you were blowing up my text and she's like, you'll never guess what my name means. And so it was really cool.
And this was before Aaron died.
Yeah.
This was literally before. This was December of 22.
Yeah.
And then I never knew what my path was going to be walking.
Awesome.
And how the Lord literally allowed me to overcome it all. So bring you to today. I mean, I am working from home now. The Lord at the end of 23 brought me a new opportunity to work from home. That was the God of restoration.
Mm.
So he allows me to work from home and do my job there and literally help overcome anything that we had, restore everything that we had lost
Right.
in the sense of income and things like that. So, and that I took that job position on the 1 year anniversary of when revival began.
Wow.
So when I tell you I truly experienced revival in my family, and I'll always go to say I know every family experienced some portion of it, but there was not a coincidence that revival kept getting extended, because the Lord had already knew what was going to happen. So I truly feel like revival did come to our town.
Even if it's just for your family, even if it was just for
100%.
the things that happen in your family.
So today, I mean, it's the word.
Yeah.
It's the word.
And when she says the word, she means it. Like, I love the word and I can dig in the word, but there's this aspect of digging in the word that my brother has and that you have, that you just find these gold nuggets. And I'm like, where's that been all my life? Like, how did that happen? But you're one of those. We were at your house last week or so. And you've been doing the Bible recap this whole year. And when you pull out your notebook and the pages that you've written, the notebooks that you have filled up of what the Lord is showing you and the word, there's a thing in the Bible that says, drink the fat, eat the sweet of the word. And the word is like a honey and honeycomb. And you have just sucked it in. Like your sister and I talk all the time like you're a Bible scholar. That's what we consider you. Because you've got this wisdom and you see the word in a way that so few people see it. And we've already like prophesied books into you and devotionals and stuff, which you love. But there's this depth to the word that you find so much deeper than just the pages of this word. And that's been all the Lord.
Yeah.
All the Lord.
When it kind of brings me back to the whole fortified cities in the Bible where, they run to flee from trouble. And in that week that we were separated in the sense, like he was my fortified city. Like I ran to him and he placed me in his arms at that point to be able to flee from trouble. So I was reading, I reminded myself of that, this morning. But it was just like he is my stronghold in the sense of he's going to keep me.
Right.
Yeah. So really and truly, it's just the word, staying in it. Because I do know that Satan will try to bring up my past. And one thing I do want to say is, so I ended up having a dream, really. And actually, Bella had this dream. And I just so happened to have a dream, too. Something similar, but not. But she was being chased by a bee. So it's funny you brought up honeycomb. But she was being chased by a bee, and she actually got stung by it. And I was just asking Lord, I'm like, okay, what could this mean? And so it took me a few days, but it's the sting of his death that will have a hold on us if we allow it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to us to allow the sting, or when it burns and when it stings, turn to the honey of God's word, and it can bring healing.
That's so good. So good. So let me, in closing, tell me your love for the word, and I know I just talked about it, but your love for the word is beautiful. Like I know so many people who are Christians who like read their Bible and go to church and do this and do that. But your intense love for the word is beautiful. How someone watching, it's the new year, we're starting over, we're starting fresh. How would you encourage someone to develop the beautiful love that you have for the word? Like, what did you do, or how do we go about loving the word like that?
So I'm really going on my second year reading the Bible, because last year in 23 I did make it a point, like, you know what, I want to dig into this word. And I can remember in July I was like, Lord, don't bring the rapture. I just want to be able to read the word before I get up there at least one time. And so now going back through it a second time, that's the blueprint to our life. And there's so many stories that are in there that every single person, anything that they battle, you will find yourself in that word. Yeah. The Lord has laid it out. So you must find your identity in Christ first, and then follow the blueprint that the Lord has laid out. And then you will be able to find what God's will is for your life.
Got you. That's beautiful. Like that's, man, it's genuine. Like that, like I feel the Holy Spirit just drop in there. It is the blueprint of our life. It has every answer that we're looking for. And we can go to therapy, and we can talk to people, and we can do art therapy, and we can write poems and write songs and ponder and go to meditation and silent retreats and all these things. And it's sitting right there in front of us.
You just have to pick it up
and read it and apply it.
Yep. When you don't do it, you'll never find the will of God for your life. You'll think you'll know, but that's not. Yeah. You know, so who knows? I'm just going to embrace this season wherever he leads, you know. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to continue to dig in the word, because who knows what he's going to do.
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, really quick before you go, I'm going to ask you just a few little questions. Okay. Favorite verse in the Bible? Do you have one?
Yeah.
Or one for right now?
There's two, but I'll give you just one since Mitchell took my last one. 1 Peter 5:10. And so, in his kindness, God called you to share in his eternal glory by means of Christ Jesus. So after you have suffered a little while, he will restore you, support you, and strengthen you, and place you on a firm foundation.
That is totally your life. That is totally what you've just shared with us. That's absolutely it.
Yes.
God, it's beautiful. Okay. When you get to heaven, who's the first person?
David.
I knew it. Why David?
Because he was a man after God's own heart.
Okay.
And I feel like in this season, I'm going to cry. Before I get to heaven, I want to know as much detail I can about God's heart.
It's beautiful. Which is what we all should be wanting. To be people after the heart of God. And David screwed it up. I mean, he got it wrong, real wrong, lots of times. But even still, he was a man that was searching for God in the middle of all of his chaos, in the middle of all his stuff. And how I love that. I've never heard somebody say, before I get to heaven, I want to know all about him. Like I always say, I can't wait to get to heaven to see what it's like. And you're here preparing your heart now with expectation of what you're going to see, expectation of what you're going to experience.
Because I've experienced his peace, his joy, his strength, his goodness. There's way more, and I'll never experience it all on this side of heaven. Yeah. But if I can at least get to more details of his heart, that's what I want.
That's beautiful. We're going to end right there because I don't know what else to say. Like, gosh, it's so wonderful. I wish you guys could be in here because I just feel like Holy Spirit in the room. Like there's just this peace and this settling in him in the room. And so I want to end there. Is there anything else you want to say? Are you good with it? You're good ending there? I think so too. Oh, I could just sit in this for a hot minute, but we won't make y'all do that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We will definitely have you back again. We're not going to talk. We've told your story. Now we're going to let you come back and teach us some words.
Oh, stop.
Teacher Michelle.
Stop.
It's going to come back and teach us. But I do. Again, thank you so much for being here. I love you. I love our friendship. And your family is so precious and dear to God's Coffee Call. We are a lot of who God's Coffee Call is because of your family. And I know I keep saying that, but I truly, from the bottom of our heart, our family holds a special place for your family at God's Coffee Call. Always.
Well, thank you.
Always, always. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. I hope this episode has blessed you as much as it has blessed me. I hope that it's caused you to evaluate some things in your life. I hope that it's caused you to maybe heal some things in your life, and that by the end of this episode, you can identify the peace of the Lord in the middle of everything that you're going through. As you start this new year, I hope that this encourages you that even when it doesn't go as planned, even when it doesn't look the way you want it to look, that the presence of the Lord, the word of the Lord, the peace of the Lord can push you to a new level and take you and restore you and be your comfort and be your solid rock. Again, thank you so much for being here. Please support us by subscribing to our channel, liking this video, commenting it, share it on your social media. We want everyone to hear this amazing story of the redemption of the Lord. I'm lost for words. It was beautiful. Thank you so much again. And for all of you watching, I pray as always that your coffee is strong and that your heart is full. And I'll see you for our next episode. Goodbye.